Welcome back to the 20th edition of What the Facts, the most frequently asked questions about nutrition. Well, this is part two of a two-part series that I started the last video to kind of rehash what I presented last weekend in Brooklyn, New York at their fifth annual BlackVegFest. It was a wonderful event, and I didn't give the full presentation last time because it would take more than 20 minutes. So I broke it up into two parts. So make sure you see that first part before you listen to this video, or at least go back and listen to it. So I just talked about asthma and how it represented a form of inflammation, and I went very quickly through the treatment for it, including inhalers. And I was just saying that what you won't hear from many of your asthma providers is that if you eat 5 or more servings of fruit and veggies daily, you can decrease the frequency of asthma, the number of times you have asthma attacks. A study showed this, and feel better. What you also haven't been told is that if you eliminate milk and dairy products from your diet, that you can decrease the severity of asthma. It can become less difficult to treat. In most cases, not all. Now, I know eliminating dairy products, that's a broad band of food there that involves a lot of comfort food like pizza and yogurt and sour cream and cheese, pancakes, biscuits. But all of these foods can be veganized, meaning they can be made without cow's milk, without egg. So I digress. If you really eliminate the dairy products and the milk, you can often bring asthma under better control. That's been my experience, and that's been reported in some research. You likely haven't been told by healthcare providers that if you decrease your sodium intake, that the level of asthma can improve, that the severity level can go down. Now that's I found really intriguing when I learned that, because we know that sodium is also part of the reason why, or at least too much sodium intake is the reason why you may have high blood pressure. And it also increases risk for certain cancers. So I'm very happy to see when one particular step can lead to a benefit in multiple areas. Your asthma can come under better control with less sodium intake, less salt intake. Now, you also have not likely been told that if you really go to a full plant-based lifestyle and give up that meat, egg, and dairy, you can bring the level of inflammation in your lung down. You can decrease the inflammation, which is the core component of asthma. But guess what? It doesn't stop there. When you eat that way and eat mostly plants and a variety of them, and get rid of those other problematic foods, highly processed foods, you bring down the level of inflammation in other parts of the body too, where they may be causing problems, causing other diseases. Now, I'd like now to pivot away from asthma to other disease, and to another disease, and that's COVID-19. Yes, that disease driven by a SARS-CoV-2 virus particle that has brought the globe almost to its knees. That disorder, that virus that tends to pounce on 3 subgroups of people in this country: the elderly or aged, minorities, and people that have various chronic illnesses. The catchy term has been comorbidities. Some examples are diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, people that are an unhealthy weight, people with chronic kidney disease, and some more. But if we look at those last 2 categories, because let's face it, we can't turn back the clock and get younger, right? We can try, but we can't do that. But minorities and those that have comorbidities, well, the minorities, if you take away those comorbidities, often you take away the risk. So there's a common denominator there, a common cause or risk risk factor, and that is poor diet. You see, the standard American diet has less than 3 servings of fruits and veggies, and that makes it really sad. Standard American diet. And it's sad because you have to ask, what are the other elements of that diet? Well, okay, we know fruits and veggies are a small part, less than 3 servings. Where else are the calories coming from? And the answer is from processed food, about 60+%. And then the remaining, 20 to 30% comes from milk, egg, and dairy, from meat and meat products. So that's what makes it kind of sad, because that's why so many people are unhealthy in this country, a main reason. Now, right next door to the standard American diet is the soul food diet, and sometimes called the Southern diet. Don't let me get started on that, but I'll just say the reason why the soul food or Southern diet is not so good for you too is, even though it may have a few more veggies, it's loaded with the SOS foods: salt, oil, which is just liquid fat, and sugar. Now, when I was growing up, SOS meant help. And I would submit to you that it still means help, because if you are eating the soul food diet or soul food meal or Southern meal, you're going to eventually need help, a lot of help. All right, so now let me help you understand why. You see, we have something called our immune system, which is, it really literally means to protect us. And part of our immune system is made up of so-called white blood cells. I said it that way, so-called, because they're really not white. Somebody 100 years decided to name them white blood cells. Anyway, these are important cells. They're vital because they protect us against infection. Not only viruses, but against bacterial infection, other types of microbial infections. Those are really small organism infections. So they need to work well in a healthy environment for us. But they don't work well when they're in a sugary environment. They don't work well when they're in a greasy or oily environment. Now, we should understand that. I know you could understand this, that say you're sitting at a table having a meal, a standard American meal, and someone comes running in the kitchen, a trail of smoke traveling behind them, and saying, "The house is on fire." And you bolt for the door, you beat them to the door, and you're trying to open the door. It's this metal knob, and you can't open it because your fingers are greasy. You cannot grip onto it to open that door. Well, that's what white blood cells feel like. I mean, they can't grip onto stuff and do what they need to do to help us. You kind of get it? I know. Well, I know there's some KFC lovers tuned in here, or former KFC, so you know what I'm talking about. I would be former. But in all seriousness, folks, those people that are at an unhealthy weight or have high cholesterol or high blood sugar, they have more ACE2 receptors, angioconverting enzyme, ACE2 receptors on their tissues and organs. Now, we all have these structures. They're normal. They have a purpose for us, these ACE2 receptors that the SARS-CoV-2 attaches to get in our cells. But people that have these conditions I mentioned either have more of them, which is the case when you are at an unhealthy weight, or there's something qualitative about them, some characteristic about them that makes them more inviting to SARS-CoV-2. So in these settings, you have a setup like on millions, if not billions of your cells, bullseyes for the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And once they get into these billions of cells, they set up house and they have something like a COVID house party and really cause a lot of disease. So the question becomes what to do. And that is, let me put it this way. We can reduce our risk of getting sick and dying from COVID, as well as a host of other diseases that potentially plague us, by eating more plants, by going plant-based, by getting the meat and the chicken, the dairy, egg off our plates and out of our cups, and by ratcheting down the amount of processed foods, especially highly processed foods and processed sugar. If we do those things, folks, we have a running start. Now, if we add to it appropriate amounts of vitamin D, appropriate amounts of vitamin B12, um, you know, vaccinations when indicated, and boosters. If we add to it appropriate rest and exercise and masking and distancing when it's indicated, if we do all those things, utilize every tool in our toolbox, then we have a great chance to get through this problem. Not just the pandemic, but all the other things that preceded the pandemic that tends to assault people in westernized countries. Okay? So, speaking of toolbox, I have a model that I use, a branded toolbox called Fearless, the Fearless model to enhancing physical and mental health. And by the way, did you know if you consume 7 or more servings of fruit and veggies, you can bring down the level of anxiety? It can reduce your anxiety and make you happier. Dr. Michael Greger presented an article that showed just that not too long ago that I reviewed. I thought I'd throw that in there. Now, don't be intimidated by 7 servings, folks. 1 regular sized banana or apple is a serving. Each one of those are a serving. 2 plums, 2 kiwi is a serving. A half cup of berries is a serving. A half cup of cooked beans. So it can be done. Well, back to Fearless. So the Fearless model, the word Fearless is just an acronym, meaning each letter stands for a pillar of activity, a pillar of action. The F is for food, most important here. Plant-based. I can't say that enough. That's been proven in so many studies. That's the best way for you to better your health. The E is for exercise. Nobody argues against that. We need to keep movement, especially our legs, folks. The A is for avoiding toxins, not just alcohol, excessive drinking, and smoking. No smoking, please. Anything. We also need to avoid those toxins in foods and those additives, those chemical additives. There's 10,000 out there that are in many of the processed foods. Avoiding those too. The R is for restorative sleep. If you want to have that balance of your creativity section of your brain, if you want to have emotional stability, if you want to be able to recall what you were doing and what you learned the day before, you've got to have adequate sleep. 7 to 9 hours for adults. And it needs to be qualitatively good. The L is for lessening stress. I mean, come on, we know we really need that now. Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, whatever meets your, whatever fits for you. And the second E is for engaging your mind. Really important as you get older in age, like me, hitting the mid-60s, getting away from the learned years and from the career, possibly when you retire. You got to keep that mind going with complex tasks, like perhaps learning how to play a new instrument or memorizing a song and singing it. That's one of the things I like to do, though I can't carry a tune. Or even learning a new language, like even sign language. Like, get this. What that means is I appreciate you and thank you very much. I motioned that to, I sent that signal or that sign language to our ASL interpreter at the fest. It was kind of cool. Back to the point. Fearless, the last 2 S's. The next to the last S is for social energy, empathy. That's really important. When you collaborate for the common good, you are actually helping other people. So social energy tends to enhance your health. And then the last S is for spiritual connectivity, that greater force, that grounding force, something that's a positive focus that grounds you, that is much bigger than you. And for many people, for me, that's God and religion, but it doesn't have to be. For some people, it's another type of force for them. For some people, it's yoga. So that's pretty much it, folks. I know I don't have all the answers, but I tell you, and in fact, I never will. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life chasing after them, and when I can, sharing them and continuing to learn. And you know, the thing is, the most valuable thing we have is our health. And why not make every time we choose a food the an opportunity to not only enhance our mind, body, and spirit, but also to save a few voiceless animals in this world, and at the same time, folks, contribute to the health of this planet, which is suffering from climate change and is sick and has a fever. I thank you for your attention. Hope to see you next time. Check me out on www.fearlessmd.fearlessmd21.com. Have a great week. Bye.